Well, thank you all for coming this morning. It's great that you made such a great effort. So thank you for coming this morning. So today is the annual Cardiff Venture Capital World Summit, the aim of the event is to bring people together and hopefully fund investment, and so we can discuss about the possibilities that we can help businesses as well. So we're going to start this morning with Patricia. And Patricia has got a wealth of experience, particularly with the experience from Switzerland, Swiss banking, and she's going to tell us a little bit more of how she can help and how she sees things which can help businesses, particularly trends and topics as well. And it should be quite a fantastic, inspiring talk, which I'm looking forward to listen as well. So without further ado, Patricia Weber, would you like to, or if you're not ready, we can wait a few seconds. So.
It would be nice. Good morning, everyone. My name is Patricia Weber, and I'm a partner at Swiss Banking Advisory. Swiss Banking Advisory is domiciled in Geneva and Zurich, and I head the branch in London as a partner and head this up in the Mayfair office. I'm very privileged to be here today and to really just inform you about the sorts of things that we get involved in, and hopefully get an awareness with you about the sorts of things that we find exciting and how we want to, in the best possible way, if we can, collaborate with people who might be interested in the things that we do. Just to give you an idea, I have a background in software and IT innovation. I've spent years working in the development of applications, and that has been mostly through communication. More recently, I work as a non-executive director on a board advising them on their strategy. This is in the insurance and car manufacturing areas, and again the innovative route to helping practices that perhaps have been a little outdated to be more innovative and to be helping an industry that is obviously changing in many ways, especially with the electric cars. And obviously internal practices and staff have to engage in the same way, and that takes a bit of engineering there too. So that's been very interesting. I also head an advisory consultancy working with a new technology company in the financial area to do with cryptocurrency, and that in itself is also very innovative, and working with them to make that particular venture come to life. And that is very exciting on the one hand, but the cryptocurrency and its applications is a very new and innovative area, and I'm working with them on their strategy to engaging not only that in the financial market, but also that application within other sectors as well. So that will give you a little bit of a flavour on innovation. So it's not just working in the financial area, but the application that companies can have and their impact that it will be in the coming years. And I think we're living in very revolutionary times, and the applications that are out there will impact on a lot of what we do in years to come, but it's working with the now and the present in making those things very viable. Going back to Swiss Banking Advisory, the company works with innovations based and headed up by Ella Thurner in Zurich. This lady has worked for many years in the banking industry and works with project management and helping customers really nail down their innovations and making those practices enabled in the financial industry. So I spend much of my time between Zurich, Geneva and London, and in dealing with different markets, it's quite an innovative way of actually bringing different practices together, and that's been very exciting. We hold workshops and we hold meetings with companies in London and in Zurich, and we invite both to participate so that each company in each area can work off each other and learn far more together by working in a collaborative way. And that seems to be very that seems to work very well. We work with education workshops where we bring speakers from London and companies from London who go to Switzerland, and companies from Switzerland that come to London. So that seems to work quite well, and we work in a community. We've held many different types of interesting talks in not only Switzerland and London, but in ministries as well. So we work with the Swiss government, we work with governments here to really engage with, and also advising them on what is actually happening on the ground in the UK, because there are many streams of innovation that are out there, like Innovate UK and certain other departments, but they really need to know what is actually happening on an everyday level, and the many brilliant companies out there that have got new ideas that engage very much in working with the public as well as in private, and that is something that we try to help the government know a bit more about, and how they too can learn from our communities and learn what we do. So we work with also different bodies, so we work with women in finance, leadership areas, and also we work with financial companies that will work also with technology, and we work also with advising those companies like asset management and the areas of fintech to get to know companies that are small, and we also help companies get themselves known within those areas if they need to have introductions. So we work quite a lot across many different spheres, and people find that very helpful, and we have a consultancy service that help people in conversation with each other to make sure that the dialogue happens in a constructive way rather than just leaving it as ideas. In essence then, what we also do is work with many different areas of the financial industries, be it angel investors, venture capitalists and asset management, in also educating them in the new areas of finance and showing them how these areas can be put into their portfolios and introduce new companies into their portfolios and educate them on the areas of new innovation. So we're quite busy in Swiss Banking Advisory. We do like to know ourselves what's going on, and we try to impart that and work with people so they're more knowledgeable in really different ways, and help them to raise the finance to work with people in a more engaging and constructive way. So thank you very much. I hope that helps.
A little bit more about yourself. Did you always, when you first started, was it in London?
Yes, when I first started it was in London, and I was working for some very big corporate companies at the time. I've worked with sort of Experian and Deutsche Bank and many of the big banks. But I noticed that many of them had many different departments, were very keen to work in an innovative way, but because of their structures, it was also always very difficult to get over those hurdles. And they seemed to be very interested in what I had to say, but of course within those structures it was very difficult. So I stepped out of that arena and then started working with more collaborative companies and associations, and got talking to angel investors, and it seemed that everybody wanted to talk to each other but didn't have a path to go together, and that's really what I've been doing.
Okay, so from your role, do you see that companies always have a requirement to have services such as yourselves?
Yes, they're very keen once we are in their arena to engage with us, and I go to some of the sort of more sort of private equity meetings and some of the forums, and I'm always well received. Obviously they themselves aren't as aware as they would like to be about the different services that offer an alternative way of them getting route to market on certain information, and obviously we try our best to advise them and inform them of what we can do.
So what would be your best tips and advice, perhaps for a startup or perhaps for an established businesses? Because I'm sure there'll be different types of advice at different stages.
Oh, definitely. I think the best thing is to get advice. I think, as with all things, you get further ahead with good planning. And with good planning, good advice, and knowing your market and doing good research before you start is invaluable, really, because there's a lot of investment that goes in both by people's time and the people who are interested, and I think you can learn quite a bit by the people perhaps that have been before you and that have worked in a certain way, and there are also other people who can be good mentors and who are already successful, who can also point good way and good practices as to how one could be further ahead. So it's very exciting, but I do think good advice and being with people who are of a like mind and also understand what you're trying to achieve is very valuable.
But I presume that money, as you said, mentoring, that's quite important as well.
Yes.
But even so, there are, particularly in the case of startups, you see quite a big failure rate. And even when they do start new businesses, that statistic could be high because they could have been failing before then as well. So from that perspective, how would you compare or analyze or research the companies which you see the best future for them?
Well, I think there are many different areas, many of which some companies are not aware of. But as I say, planning is always key. But having a company in an incubator stage where they're doing their research and they're being looked after and advised as how they're going forward is quite good. Always creating a good prototype and knowing how you're going to bring that to market, knowing the costs involved, and having that well researched by yourself is invaluable. And again, if they're in an incubator stage and they're looked after, that usually irons out quite a bit. And often people come to market or they're wanting to bring ideas and they're very excited about their ideas but haven't really given that as much thought perhaps as they should do. And of course we always try to steer them back to looking at things thoroughly and putting that in perhaps focus groups and really getting a good gauge about a particular venture that they want to do before they even get started, because that pays dividends. And you can see that with successful companies who even in some instances have done that and then found, yes, perhaps it's not going to work, and go back to the drawing board again, and that in itself is valuable because they know what has gone before. So there's many ways that people can reduce that failure rate, but obviously, not everything's going to be successful.
Yeah. And in terms of, when you compare US with European market, how do you see the differences being, or, particularly with the culture, where they see in the US, they invest in a startup and just put them away in their programmers, and they can go away and do their software and everything else, which they can do themselves. Whereas in Europe, perhaps, there aren't so many programmers, startups, where they need to find someone else to help them with a startup. So perhaps there is a different viewpoint, where perhaps in Europe they need a bit more mentoring, whereas in the US they just give them money and send them away and come up with something, and then they go and follow up on that.
Yes, I don't think that I can generalise in that way. I think the American market is a bigger market, so you're dealing on a larger scale. I think it's probably the same wherever you go. Europe is quite innovative in itself. You have Spain, Italy, Switzerland. They're all very innovative areas, and they again have good incubators and good areas where there are a lot of innovative areas and companies. So I think it varies with the product and it varies with the company, but I don't think I could generalise in that way, only to say that the American market is a larger market, and in some areas some subjects are well established and in some areas it isn't. But I think it's an area that I wouldn't like to generalise, but I think everybody, when they're doing their due diligence, will look into companies and see what is worthwhile.
And particularly with the VC aspect, when they do due diligence, is that minimum a year? Because usually they do take quite a long time to make the decisions.
Yes, I think any time you have to invest in any company, the venture capitalists or angels need to get as much information as they can and make their own assessments of what they're going to invest in. And quite rightly, they need to take a bit of time looking at something and seeing what is the most valuable and the most effective way for them to invest in a company. And many venture capitalists or investors have different levels of investment they wish to make, or they may want equity, or they may have their own subject areas that they know more about, and sometimes they can be very valuable in their investment and what they bring for the company that they're interested in. So I think a lot of them will add quite a bit to a company, as well as taking the advantage of investing in something that looks like it could well be successful.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's what investees and investors, that's a perfect match. So we can ask, we can have some questions from the audience.
I'm more of a startup, but I have been researching for quite a while. If I have gone to venture capitalists twice, two of them actually said to me, "We are interested, but you're ahead of yourself, so come back in about 2 or 3 years' time." Does that mean that in a way I should shop around more to find one that understands the innovation?
Oh, most definitely. I think you should come to Swiss Banking Advisory, and I will definitely help you out in that area.
Right.
I think there is more to that, perhaps. And yes, there are different venture capitalists who conduct themselves in different ways. And if you had somebody like ourselves, we could probably find somebody who was perhaps more readily able to understand what you're trying to achieve, and perhaps come with a better way of working with you than perhaps somebody else would do. They're all very different, and they all have different goals.
Right, okay. Thank you very much, Patricia.
That's all right.
Do you find that, certainly within the UK, the very low inflation rates and the poor return on government bonds and hedges is fueling venture capital investment as potentially a better return?
I don't think so much it's those permeables that are doing that. I think it's perhaps the fact that there are more encouraging tax breaks that are available to venture capitalists that makes the difference. And that can be quite significant in some areas, as you know. So I think in those areas, when they when there are more avenues for them to enable them to invest their capital and know that there are different ways in which, if things changed course, they would still be quite stable, make things more attractive for them.
So something we're registered with the Enterprise Investment Scheme, so that would be an added bonus.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any of those sorts of things are always very welcome to people, because, as you know, in some areas to begin with, you would have to put your money in for 5 years at the beginning, and then, you know, if you lost your money, but now they've changed that so that you still are able to claim things back even if something fails. So it's making it a more stable environment, and I believe they're changing the thresholds for how much you can do or what you can do. So I think that side of it is making things, and also Britain a very, very, very attractive place to invest.
How do you see potentially with the Brexit situation? Do you see that as being a barrier or an opportunity?
I think nobody knows.
Okay.
I think we're all staying positive and as far as we can, and trying not to fall out with each other. But I think that so far we are continuing business as usual.
That's all we want to hear, which is great. And is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, just very much thank you for your time and listening, and I hope what I've had to say has been very interesting for you.
Thank you very much, Patricia.
Not at all. Thanks, Lily. Thank you.